to Carol. Carol is going to speak about how to excel in sales working from home. She is the founder and chief sales coach at Unbound Growth and has been voted among the top 15 leaders in sales. So on to you, Carol.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and for the warm introduction, Debarati. I am really excited to do this. And it was actually a little bit of a challenge for me because I've been working from home and in sales for 13 years. So to think about what is the one thing that I can share with everybody here that is going to have an impact on your day-to-day and on your sales numbers was a little bit of a challenge. And I was thinking over the things that I've done over the last 13 years. And that's when I realized that the one thing that I did wasn't so much something that I did or a hack or a tip, but it was actually how I prioritized my time. It was how I decided on what to do with my time that was the biggest impact. So I'm excited to share that with everyone today. Now, if I share my screen, hopefully you'll be able to see my slides here. And we're going to go through this actually really, really quickly because we only have a few minutes. And so rather than sharing the whole process with you, what I'm actually going to share with you is just the weekly and daily part of this process. But before I do that, let's get to talking about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about really quickly why this is an important process for us and why process in itself is important. And then we're going to talk about how to design your own personal prioritization process so that you can start taking these, and actually you can do this as soon as this session is over. And then of course we'll have some time for Q&A. Now, the reason why this process is important, have you ever heard the saying, if you don't know where you're going, you might end up somewhere else? It's kind of like a Yogi Berra saying, and my husband is famous for saying it. But essentially what this means is that without a plan of how we're going to spend our time, suddenly that time just kind of flies right out the window. Right. And we're all trying to chase this unicorn of work-life balance. And it is a unicorn because it doesn't actually exist. So I would say that rather than trying to have a work-life balance where we trade one for the other, let's find a way that we can actually integrate these things. Now, there's another reason why having a process to prioritize your time is important, and that is neurologically speaking. When we have a process, when we have a routine, it reduces our anxiety and it reduces our stress, and it also reduces the friction that we have to actually take those first steps towards something. Now, I don't know about you, but today, working from home in the current climate that we're in, reducing stress and knowing which steps to take is even more important than ever before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start diving into the process itself. And I'm going to use one of the old notebooks that I use for this, because you don't actually need technology. You don't need an app. You don't need a fancy thing like that, because the technology, it'll actually distract you. So rather than having technology, what I'm going to show you is actually paper, pen, and sticky notes. This is something we probably all have on our bookshelves somewhere. It's something that's easily to take with you, whether you have internet or power, it doesn't matter. So let's dive into what exactly that process looks like. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to share with you on my notebook. And then when I'm done, I'm going to share with you a graphic that shows you how to walk through this whole process. And then I'm going to share with you a link to an article that goes through this in detail with the graphic so that you can start doing this for yourself. Everybody ready? Okay. So the first thing that I do before I start diving into these notebooks is I take my yearly plan and I break it down into quarterly milestones. Those quarterly milestones are then broken down into monthly milestones and priorities. So we won't dig into that part of it yet, but what I really want to dig into with you is how I start my week and how I start every single day. Now, one last thing before we dive into this. This is a process and it might seem like work to you, but it actually only takes you about 15 minutes a day. It reduces your stress and anxiety. And not only that, I have found that when I reduce that stress and that anxiety, it allows me to be more emotionally in control, which is another thing that's really important for all of us right now in this uncertain and scary time. And by doing that, I am fully present in the moment with the people, the buyers, and the clients that I'm working with. And it's because of that my sales increased when I started doing this process. My sales increased at nearly 70%. That's not a small number. So here's what I did. Every week on Sunday night, I sit down after having dinner, having fully enjoyed the weekend, and I start what is called my weekly plan. Now, the weekly plan is something that I do in my notebook, and I started off with a little sticky note right here. This is an old notebook, so you can see there's lots of sticky notes. With that sticky note, I simply mark this is the beginning of that particular week. Then once I've marked that week, I start by doing what I call a brain dump. Now, if you can see here, this is like a long list, a tirade of different things that are swirling through my brain. For me, it's things like sales prospects that I need to reach out to in my target accounts, spring projects that I need to do, which is usually involving gardening. It can also involve things that I need to do to the house, things that I need to do with the kids and with the family. I dump everything that is cluttering around in my brain of all of the little things that I think I need to do. Now, most of us are good at creating to-do lists. And those to-do lists can get overwhelming fast because one, they never end and they're always getting added to. And so when you have this one great big long to-do list, what happens in your brain is you actually start to feel overwhelmed. And that's not what we want. We want to take this list, dump it out of our heads so that we don't have that distraction. It goes from our heads onto our paper, and now suddenly we can think and look at it a little bit more objectively and clearly. Then once I've done that, I identify what are the top 3 things that are a priority for this week. If everything on your list is urgent and important, then nothing on your list is urgent and important. You get to decide what are the top 3 and no more than 3, because our brains cannot handle more than that. We become overwhelmed. Now, once I've identified what my top 3 priorities are, then I do something else. I look for what the fun is. What am I looking forward to this week? What am I going to enjoy this week? Because if it's all work and no play, it makes us really burn out. For me, fun is things like being able to spend an entire day in the garden without being distracted, or spending time with the family, going out to dinner with my husband. Well, maybe not so much now, but in the future. I look for those bright spots in my week that are the reason that I'm doing all of this work to begin with. And that's important. It's an important reflection to start your week off with. Now, once I've identified my brain dump, and out of that, my top 3 things and the fun that I'm looking for this week, then I start mapping out my week on the next page. Now, as you can see here, I have a schedule Monday through Friday, and each of those days is broken up into AM and PM. What I will do is look at what do I have scheduled, presentations, workshops that I need to do. And I move all of those blocks of things that need to happen into those AM and PM, because we all know no matter how much and how well we plan our time, something's going to come up. And when those things come up, I can reference back to what's the number one thing I need to get done this morning? What's the number one thing that needs to be done this afternoon? And all of these need to be able to tie back into my weekly milestones and my monthly milestones and my annual goals, so that I'm actually working towards those things that are important. Now, this is what I do on Sunday night, and I do it so I can look at my entire week and have a snapshot of where my priorities are going to be. It reduces my anxiety and my stress of how am I going to get all of this done. Then I put it away, and I wake up on Monday morning, and I have my coffee, and I do it again. I know, seems redundant. But what I'm doing is I wake up on Monday morning and I look at what are the things that are going on in my brain that I need to dump out. In this, you'll see I have client catch-up that I need to do. I have a strategy I need to do. I have marketing that I need to do. I have specific people I need to reach out to today. And then I take those things and I start dividing them up. Now you can see here I have something that's called weeds and seeds. Out of my brain dump that I've done and out of my focus for the day, I look at, out of those things that I need to do, what are the seeds? Now I'm a gardener. So seeds for me are things that are going to propel me towards growth. Usually that involves sales or some type of content or speaking engagement. If you're a salesperson and listening to this, it's probably going to be prospecting. It's probably going to be doing follow-up. These are the things that are going to lead to growth. But then I also look at what are the things that are the weeds. You know, those things that you have to do, you don't want to do, you certainly don't enjoy doing, but if you don't do it, problems are going to start coming up and those weeds are going to start choking your growth. So you need to take care of those things as well. So I divide up things like bookkeeping tasks, administrative things, reports, things that I have to make sure that I get done, but don't necessarily enjoy. Now, with my leads and my Cs, I then create my daily schedule. I know it seems silly in the 21st century to put your daily schedule on a piece of paper, but neurologically speaking, when you take a pencil or a pen and you write it down, it suddenly becomes concrete in your brain. There's a different neurological reaction that happens with pen and paper than it does with a keyboard. This is important because it feels like you now have control of your time in your day. Now, does it always work according to what I've scheduled? Of course not, because sometimes the dog will poop in the house, or the kids will do something weird, or somebody doesn't show up for a meeting. But what this does is it actually allows me to be flexible so that I can move things around and still accomplish those things that are urgent and important and priorities and not be distracted by them. Now, I like making full use of my notebook, and I am not someone who encourages people to take extensive notes because sometimes that can take us out of the present moment. But I will take notes on things like, what did I promise someone? If there's numbers involved, I'm definitely going to write those down. But I rely on my recorded calls to be able to transcribe so that if I ever need to go back and look something up, I can easily do so, so that I'm not required to do all of those particular things. So that is the process in short. It seems simple, and it is simple, but a lot of people avoid doing it. And you have to wonder why. Sometimes it's because by writing these things down, it just seems like redundant work. For others, it's this procrastination that we have. There's a lot of other tips that are built into this process, which I'll save for the Q&A, but I wanted to share the graphic with you. This is how it all flows out. So I start it with my quarterly review, I bring it into a plan, and then I go into my weekly and break it down into daily. It's taking the elephant and making it into smaller chunks. So the link for the article for you to be able to go and get that is right there. So if you go, you'll see that blog article with the graphic that gives you detailed instructions on how you can do this. And you can even buy planners that are paper and pencil that'll walk you through this as well. There's a couple of examples and links in the blog article for everyone there. Hope that helps everyone to gain control of your time. Because when you're working from home, unless you want to be working all of the time and still feel like you got nothing done, this is a process that will save you the stress and the anxiety and help you to be able to integrate life and work.
Thanks, Carol. Thank you so much. That was pretty insightful. We'll move on to the question answer. We have a lot of them, so we'll start with the first one. How to create a perfect environment to work from home?
So for me, if you look on the video that I put on LinkedIn, I give you a shot of what my office looks like. And so what that means is that I created a space that has doors that close, that I can completely be in this space and not be interrupted. When I first started working from home, I had 2 young kids, and when summertime and school vacation came around, it was a real test of my environment because I had to be able to work through those distractions. And so it was very important that we set up clear boundaries. We would actually start my day with, we would sit down, we would all have breakfast together, and I would ask everybody, so what's your plan for the day? What are you going to be doing? Here's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be taking a break at these times and this time so that we can do all of these things together. And the kids knew if my office doors were closed, unless you were bleeding or someone was in the middle of the road, don't disturb mom. And they did pretty good with that.
Amazing, amazing. So another question that we have is from Nitesh. He asks, how do you get motivated at all time?
And that's why, I love that question. Thank you so much for that, because being motivated when you're working from home is tough. I know that. And that's why one of the parts of the process is, what am I looking forward to every day, every week? And the other way that you can stay motivated is to actually work breaks into your schedule. So when I'm working out what my blocks of time are going to be, I typically will block 45 to 90 minutes for something to allow me to get into the flow. Like, you know, when you're in something and it just seems to be going and you don't want to stop. So you want to give yourself that time. But I also work in breaks. So for every 45 to 90 minutes of concentrated focus work, I work in 10 to 15 minutes where I get up, I move around. Because I work from home, I can just walk outside to my garden and start pulling weeds mindlessly for 15 minutes. I want to be able to then take that time that I've blocked, and you're actually giving your brain a break. And what I do is, once I have that break, and then I shift into a completely different set of tasks. That helps me to stay motivated throughout the day so it doesn't feel like so much of a grind, and I can enjoy some of those benefits of working from home.
Sure, understood. Next question is, how do you deal with unexpected calls or events? How do you modify your schedule for the rest of the week if there are any important events that are coming in upcoming days?
So if there's important events that are coming in upcoming days, for example, this summit today that we're doing wasn't something that was in my schedule last
Yeah.
week. And so one of the things that I've learned to do is I've learned, because this is another thing that having a process does, is it allows you to experiment. This
Right.
is not set in stone. So by having the process, you then know where you can move things around. For example, I block out my mornings for things that are focused work, like content creation, creating my online course, writing books. Those are all things that I block my time for. And if something comes up during that time like this, then I know that I can either shorten that block or I can move that block to another day or another time. That allows me the flexibility in my schedule to be able to account for things like this.
Understood. Next question is time management priority checklist for sales folks working from home.
So time management, if you ask me my opinion of that, is a complete myth. It's not like you can stop time and then manage it and then let it continue to go forward. Like it just keeps going. The clock keeps ticking. So prioritizing how you're going to spend your time is a better way to look at it, because it's not like you can control everything that happens. Like I can tell you, I've been doing this process now for several years, and maybe 2, maybe 3 times it's actually worked out exactly as planned. What happens though is it allows me that flexibility to be able to move things forward. And so I can then manage how I decide to spend that particular time. So I know that I'm going to start work at 8 a.m. and I'm going to aim to end by 5 p.m. and that there's going to be a half hour to an hour lunch break somewhere in between that. I have so many hours to do so many things. I can only prioritize a certain amount of things.
Right, right. The next question is, what are some of the productivity tools that you use to manage your schedule?
I love using call recording technology. I know that we said not to use technology, so I totally encourage you to use this paper and pen method first. Once you've mastered that, then you can move into adding certain technologies in. So call recording technology, I don't need to take as many notes. Some of the other tools and apps that I've used are actually simple things like workout apps that give me 10 or 15-minute exercises that I can do during my breaks for the wintertime when I'm cooped up inside. Some of the other apps I use is going to seem very simple, but I just use a Google Calendar. And I color code that Google Calendar so that I have different tasks or different groups of tasks are certain colors. Yellow is for sales prospecting, green is for client work, blue is for administrative work, and red is for travel. So there's no red in my schedule right now. I really don't use a lot of technology tools simply because the technology tends to distract us from being able to be focused.
Got it, got it. So the next question is, how do you arrange calls with clients and how many sales calls do you have during a week?
Oh my gosh, sales calls during a week range from 2 or 3 a day. Sometimes I've had 5 in a day. Like I said, I try to block out my mornings for my focus time, for my creative time. And I will put sales calls in there. I will tell you, one of my secrets is that if I have a sales call that's a discovery call earlier in the process and in the funnel, I'm fine with scheduling those in the afternoon. But if I have a closing meeting or a meeting where we're going to be negotiating and decisions are going to be made, I actually want to schedule those in the morning, because during the day, our ability to make decisions tires us out. We actually get what's called decision fatigue by the end of the day. So I actually try to schedule my negotiation and closing calls in the morning with people so that they're not fatigued by making decisions all day long, and it's a lot easier for them to make a decision with me then. I use I guess this is another tool that I use, is I actually use an online scheduling calendar that is inserted into my email. That's another way that has saved me a ton of time, rather than going back and forth with, well, what time works for you on this day? Well, nope, that doesn't work. How about this time? Instead, I give them my calendar link and ask, would you mind using my calendar link to schedule a time to save us both a whole bunch of time? It sets up the call, it sets up the Zoom information, and I don't have to do anything after that except find out what their agenda is going to be.
Sure, sure. So another question that we have here is, are remote sales teams more effective than office sales teams? And do you have some analysis around the same?
So I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, so the question is, are remote sales teams more effective than office sales teams? Do you have some analysis around this?
So I do have some analysis around this, and it's actually more around who has the capability of working from home. Not everyone has the discipline to be able to work from home, to be able to do a process like this and work. In fact, I think there's only around 40 to 41% of salespeople who have been evaluated that show that they have the capabilities of working from home. Some people need that office environment. They need that constant accountability. They don't do well with autonomy. And so it's not so much that it's one versus the other, it's what mindsets and skill sets do you have to support you in working from home. And if you don't have those, then you're better off working in an environment where it's going to be a lot of people keeping you accountable, or that you can walk up to someone's desk and just ask them that. I will share with you, when I first started doing this, I was an extreme extrovert. I thrived on the energy of being around other people. And so when I started working from home, it was a big adjustment. And now I have found that I've actually been able to kind of alter my preferences. I actually enjoy being alone now. I get overwhelmed sometimes when I'm around too many people. So if you have the discipline and the routines, you can make those adjustments, but it's not going to happen overnight. So it's important to have routines and structure and disciplines to be able to work from home. Otherwise, plan on working in an office.
Right. Thank you, Carol. I think we'll take the other questions up with you. Like they'll forward it to me and I'll forward them to you. You can answer those questions later. We'll move on to the next session, but thank you so much for joining in and for all your insightful information that you shared with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Carol.
Hey, hope you like the recording. Do check us out at Amplus B2B Bench for 11 more killer content. Also try out Amplus Sales Buddy if you want to ring that next customer who is waiting for it.